Hey, it
All
looks
right,
like
we
we're
are
live.
live.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the third and final day of our Spring Into an Epic Summer Adventure, streaming live on Facebook and YouTube with Mrs. Dachelle McVeigh from Literary Adventures for Kids and Mrs. Gena Mayo from Music in Our Homeschool. So, Dachelle, why don't you go ahead and share a bit about your course again, and then you can throw it over to Gena.
Sure, thank you. Okay, so we have been talking about The Hobbit for the last 2 days, and this is I'm really sad that this is our last day because I'm kind of had fun dressing up.
We had a lot of
Even
fun.
though I'm going to get whacked by my own crown today. But it has been so much fun. But we're not going to stop today, even though it's our last day of all of us together. We're not going to stop. We all have fun things to do this summer, and mine is literature based on just The Hobbit, not Lord of the Rings, just The Hobbit. So we're going to read The Hobbit. We're going to go on rabbit trails about Tolkien, about his characters, the setting, everything that he created. We're going to do some hands-on activities like experiments and things like that. We're going to do some party school activities. So I will give you some ideas of how we got dressed up for fun, some ways you can decorate to have your party school, and foods you can have at your party school, and some activities. So invite your friends over, have everybody read The Hobbit this summer. Even if they're not following along with the book club, they can join you for fun at the party school at the end. And I will add a link in just a second. And if you click on that link, you can get 30% off because you're watching live today.
Woo! Miss Gena?
Yes. Hello, everybody. This is Gena Mayo from Music in Our Homeschool, and I have a really fun course that I just created for all of us called Music Lessons of Hobbits, Elves, and Dwarves. And we go into exploring the different musical themes that the composer, Howard Shore, created for the movies of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. And through today, you can get that course for only $10. Starting tomorrow, it will be $17. So if you want to get it for $10, you can use that coupon code, which is Adventure23.
All right. So you want to put us on the screen so that they can rest their crowns. All right. And so obviously we are Olivia and Alisha Greathouse with the Masterpiece Society. And our camp this year is Art Venture into Middle Earth. And so for all of you who are members of Masterpiece Society Studio, it should be under the My Courses page under the Inspired by Authors section. For all of you who have purchased it individually, then you should have received an email. Inside the course page is our 61-page PDF. Inside this are recipes, activities, a little bit about each art lesson and the supplies you need for each art lesson, and of course our Middle Earth name generators. And did you put the link? For all of you who have not purchased it, we created a PDF of just the name generators so that you can participate with us and find your Middle Earth name. We did Hobbit names on Monday, dwarf names on Tuesday. Today we will do our Elven names. And even though this is our last day of our epic adventure online, our course is through the month of June. And we also have wizard names and orc names. So it'll be fun for you to play around with those as well. So Olivia, if you would like to talk about some of the elven recipes that we have for our Art Venture menu.
Absolutely, I would. I am very excited about the elf food menu. I feel like it's my favorite. Like, even though the Hobbit foods and the dwarf foods are fun, some of the more interesting foods, in my opinion, were with the elves. So, of course, we have limbus. One small bite is enough to fill the stomach of a grown man. And they are...
How many did you eat, Pippin?
4. No, they're so good. My brother could not get enough of them, and he's been begging me to make some more. They are just delicious. We also have a lemon blueberry tart. Now, most of the... Yes, they were so good. Most of the foods that I tried to come up with were either like fruit themed or veggie themed because, of course, the elves are in touch with nature and they like all that stuff. So we have a delicious blueberry tart, fruit pizza, which was so good. We have leaf green leaf sugar cookies, which were delicious as well, among other things. So that was a lot of fun for me.
Awesome. Well, if you're joining us live, go ahead and tell us what your elven names are while we all find ours. And
We've
if
already
you
had some pop in the chat.
Oh, have we?
Yes.
And if you join us on the replay, just put replay so that we know that you did join us. And also let us know where you're joining us from. Obviously, it's Middle Earth, but like what state or country in Middle Earth? And don't tell us Mordor or Lorien. We want to know real ones. So my elf name, Elbereth Goldenwood. So you take the first initial of your first name and the month that you were born to find your last name. So Elbereth Goldenwood.
All right. And then mine is Irith Silverlight.
I like
So
that.
I love these. These are fun.
So you want to read some of those?
Yes, I do. So Elizabeth commented we have Zumanor, Aemanor, and Ulawin who are excited to join today. Those are beautiful.
I love that.
And then we had Shell commented she's in Oklahoma. She said hi. Her elf name is Erwin Lorien. Ooh, I love that.
That's beautiful.
And I saw that Miss Gena commented hers. Where did that go? It was really pretty. Oh, here it is. Aridel Silverlight. Oh, I love that.
The Silverlight is so lovely sounding.
Mhm.
All you Januaries.
Yes. All right. So here are a few more. So we have Nedrinel of the Valar, Irim Greenleaf, Caranthir Silmaril, Eminye Tenuviel, and Melian Fairforest. Sorry if I'm butchering these names.
We don't speak Elven for real.
And then we have Nienna Noldering. That is Miss Dachelle.
Ooh, I like that.
And so we have
Nienna.
people coming from Ohio, Texas, Oklahoma. So it is wonderful to see all of you joining us today.
Yes, welcome to all of you. All right, so I wanted to mention one more time about the quest that we have for, normally, as I mentioned yesterday, we had been doing our art ventures all in 1 week, but for your sanity and ours, we have spread them out over the entire month of June. So this week is our kickoff. Next week is our prep week, and then you start the first week of June. And then the last week of June, which you can obviously customize this, but we created for the last week a quest where there are 20 different things that begins with a party in the Shire for Bill. But I've been up since 3:48 this morning. So if I say something silly, that's why. Bilbo's 111th birthday, and it ends with actually you destroy the ring and then you come back to the Shire. So Miss Gena has been talking about her playlist, but Olivia had created one to accompany our quest. So
Yes.
Once you have this course, we also have a Masterpiece Society. You could probably look it up on Spotify, even if you don't have our course, but it goes along with the quest and all the different music from the movies and even some, because in the movies of The Lord of the Rings, they did not put Tom Bombadil in there, but he's in the books.
Yes.
And so we have some of his crazy singing. Anyway, it's a really fun playlist to go along with the quest. And then I wanted to show you our last art pieces. Olivia, I'll let you show this one.
All right.
Whenever you have a chance. But on our third day of...
Yes, it's the third day.
This is the elf, and we tried to do... Thank you.
Yep.
If you noticed in the art and the landscapes of the movies, for even like the Hobbit and the Lord of the Ring trilogy, the elves had the Art Nouveau style with all the beautiful branches and vines, and I love that. So that's why we kind of gave that a more organic vine feel. And for the lesson, I will show you how to do a male elf if you want to, but since they look kind of the same, there's not much of a difference, but we will do a different color of hair on the lesson. And then as Olivia showed you the dwarf yesterday, and if you notice, their architecture was very Art Deco. So we love how those two because I love art themes and art eras, and those are
course.
2 of my favorites. So I just needed to point that out. And then for our last, if you want to do Mordor last and the Hobbit hole first, you are welcome to do that however you want to. But actually, I think we put this as second to
Yeah,
last.
this is our second to last.
And
so
this is
Mordor. So in this art piece itself, we chose to use very bright colors because that is important to us. So as you can see, there's lots of orange, purple, green, and blue. So I kind of went crazy with the colors. However, in the actual lesson itself, I encourage you to use your own colors, and you can choose the colors of Mordor. So the blacks and browns and grays and reds and oranges, if that's what you prefer. But if you're like us and you prefer lots of color, then highly recommend using bright purples and greens.
Yeah, we always recommend that you use your own favorite colors. You do not have to make copycat projects of ours. In fact, we give you templates, but you're always free to freehand your drawings and make it your own, because we definitely want you to put your artistic flair on there. So, all right. You've got the link to the names. Did you want to read some more?
I do. Oh my gosh, somebody's already singing Tom Bombadilio. Okay, I have slight beef with Tom Bombadil because in the book, all he does is sing poetry, and it's like I just want the hobbits to go continue on their quest, and he just slows down the whole story. But it's really funny. People have mixed views about Tom. So anyway, we have some comments saying that our costumes are out of this world and they admire our costumes. So thank you guys so much. That is so sweet.
I think all 4 of us have had so much fun putting our costumes together.
Yes, they have been great fun. Okay, so we have Idril Evenstar,
Ooh, I love that.
Medros Goldenrod,
Ooh.
Duelin Elderwood, and Galleon Elderwood. Oh, those are so pretty. So we have Elbert Greenleaf, Aradel Nolderine, and Imen Elderwood. So then we have Leah. She says, my elf name is Imayi.
Listen, you're the one who made these
Of
names.
the Valar. I know, they're
But
very...
we did take them from Tolkien's names in the Silmarillion.
Yes, they are a little more difficult to pronounce. Oh, Shell, she says her name is Elizabeth, not Shell. Sorry about that, Isabella. I said Elizabeth. I meant Isabel. Sorry. Hi from Illinois. Her elf name is Ardith, and that was what Jackie posted.
That's beautiful.
Oh, and Gena says she's in Illinois too. So yay, small world. Let's see. We did have a few more. Oh, and says, hey, Tom Bombadil, Bombadillo. Bright blue is his jacket, and his boots are yellow. Yes, he's saying that quite often.
Anne is a Tolkienist. What is it? You're either a ringer, a Tolkienist,
or a Tolkienite. I think that's the correct term.
Tolkienite. Ringer. And there's one other one that I'm trying to think of, but it doesn't matter.
And then Shelley says Arya Fairforest. So I love these.
Fairforest. All right. Oh, I forgot. Did you want to plug your little Hobbit Girl summer on Instagram?
Yes. So I personally am doing a little bit of something called Hobbit Girl Summer. And basically, it is just a list of prompts and ideas that you can do throughout the summer to enjoy the season as a Hobbit would. So there are a lot of prompts that involve being in touch with nature, stepping away from civilization, and learning how to rest. There are a lot of fun recipes. And so once a week, every Monday, I send out an email with a list of prompts that you can do, as well as a recipe that you can try that week. And so this past Monday, I just sent out an email that had the calendar with a list of different ideas. And so if you subscribe to my newsletter every Monday, I will send out a new list of things to do. And so next week, I will be offering a book list, a bunch of different books that are similar to Tolkien or inspired Tolkien or have a Hobbit-y vibe to the books themselves.
She's also doing a few other freebies, like she will make some prints with quotes from the books.
Yes, those
some
are
of her
coming very
own
soon.
artwork.
Mhm.
She just had a giveaway that your hair back here is driving me crazy.
Don't look at it.
Okay, I won't look at it. So I think that's all. I just wanted to remind you, if you haven't purchased Art Venture into Middle Earth and you would like to, then please make sure you do it before June 1st when it goes up in price to $127. Right now, it's only $47. So save $80 and get it before the increase. Now we're going to probably go on over to Miss Gena, and she is going to talk about the music of Lothlorien and Rivendell, or maybe Rivendell and Lothlorien. I don't know what order.
All right.
Yes, we are going to talk about the music of Lothlorien and Rivendell and the Woodland Realm. So it'll be fun to explore all three of the different elf groups. I want to start, of course, with just a review of the composer, Howard Shore. He's a Canadian composer. He was born in 1946, and he's written music for more than 80 movies. But he became most famous for doing the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies. And he just did an amazing job of helping us feel the story more deeply because of the music that he created for it. So we've been listening to different themes that he created. For the first day, we did the Hobbit Shire theme. Yesterday, we listened to some dwarf themes, like the low, deep music that they sing. And today, it's the elves. All right. And I wanted to let you know that I did this so simply. This is a necklace. I didn't even get anything special. I had this necklace, so I just hooked it behind my head and put my hair back. And that is my elf costume with a kind of a lacy shirt that I'm wearing. So you can do something like that for your elf costume. So let's start off with the first theme. And what's really neat about the elves as compared to the other groups of people was that Howard Shore made this music sound ethereal, airy, kind of otherworldly. It's a lot quieter, usually slower. It has long notes, held out notes. It doesn't have a real steady beat like you heard with the dancing rhythm of the hobbits or the marching music of the dwarves. A lot of it's just kind of free flow with the rhythms. So that is really cool. Let's see what else. So we are going to hear the Lorien or Galadriel theme first. And I'm going to skip ahead so that you can hear it. This one is the music called The Mirror of Galadriel. And here is where the theme. That's probably not loud enough, so let me turn it up. But it sounds like this. Da, 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 da. So you probably recognize that. So let me make sure this is louder. Let me play that again. So you heard that underneath the singing, it's just going bum, just holding the note. The music is in a minor key, so it sounds also a little bit, in addition to feeling airy, it sounds a little eerie. It sounds a little menacing. It sounds a little scary. And as you know, the dwarves, the elves, well, also the dwarves, but the hobbits, when they would go into the elf territory, always were apprehensive. The dwarves were too, but that was because of the fighting between the dwarves and the elves. But the hobbits were a little scared to enter the realms of the elves. So you hear that in the music. So this particular theme is heard at the very beginning of the Lord of the Rings movie, right before Galadriel starts saying the world is changed. So that's the beginning theme that you hear. And it comes back many times, such as when the hobbits arrive in Lothlorien, when Galadriel takes Frodo and Sam to the mirror, when she is in the swan boat, and in the second movie, when she is speaking to Elrond through their minds. So you hear this da 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 da. But another place where it comes back is kind of in a warlike attitude with horns playing it. And this is when the elves come to help fight at Helm's Deep. So let me play that one for you. So isn't that neat how I told you that Howard Shore can take these themes and change them up to fit what's going on the screen? And it just helps us to feel it, even if we don't even know that we're recognizing the music. Maybe you haven't studied the themes or even recognized, hey, that is the Lorien theme that we're hearing. You know, somewhere in your mind, you're relating it to being where they were in Lothlorien with Galadriel. And now that music is back, but it's in a different attitude. Okay, so let's move on to the Rivendell theme. So it has the similar type of singing, which is high singing and airy, very different from the dwarf singing we heard yesterday, right? Which was very low, male voices, very forceful. This is complete opposite. The Rivendell theme is a little different in that it's da 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 da. It's going da 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 like this, and it kind of reminds me of the waterfalls that you see in Rivendell, and I love that. I'm going to play the theme called Rivendell, but before I do, I want to let you know that what you hear at the beginning of it is the Shire theme. And we are almost done with the Return of the Kings. We've been doing all of the Tolkien books this semester. And I wanted to read this little passage that we heard a couple of days ago. This is when the hobbits are returning to the Shire after all of the end of the story, which I won't explain what happened in case you haven't read it. But they're returning and they go into Rivendell, and Sam says this, "Well, Mr. Frodo, we've been far and seen a deal, and yet I don't think we found a better place than this." He's talking about Rivendell. "There's something of everything here, if you understand me. The Shire and the Golden Wood and Gondor and king's houses and inns and meadows and mountains all mixed." And so I think that this is kind of like the second happiest place in the story. And we're going to hear that with the Rivendell. So first you hear the Shire theme, and then it will switch over to the Rivendell theme. So now it went back to the Shire theme again. So, something you may have never really thought about is that if you are a composer for a movie that's based on a book, you really need to read the book and understand the story and the way that the author portrayed it in order to express that in the music. And I think that Howard Shore did a incredible job with that here. So next we're going to listen to the same theme, but this is with the Council of Elrond. And what's neat about this particular one is that you're going to hear it in a more menacing manner. It doesn't sound quite as pretty. Da, 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 da. You'll hear it's a little different because now is when they're going to discuss the ring, decide on the quest, decide on who's going. And I am going to be holding up different things because you will also hear the ring theme, which we haven't talked about, Rivendell, and the Isengard theme. So I will lift those up when you hear it in the music. So here we go with the Council of Elrond. Okay, that was the end of the Council of Elrond. Now we're going to switch over to the woodland realm, which we find in The Hobbit. And this is the place where Legolas is from. So you hear this music in the Hobbit movies, and it has some similarities with the type of singing that you hear. But I feel like it also has something that you feel more with the trees, like it's a stronger, a sturdier type. It does have somewhat of a steady beat to it. And it also reminds me of the arrows. You know, these people were archers. And so see if you hear that with the woodland realm music. Let me find that one. So if you want to listen to more of this music, you can find it at my Spotify playlist at musicinourhomeschool.com/epic summer playlist. I'll type that in a minute. And that way you can listen to all of this music again. But if you're interested in getting the course, it will explore even more themes that we didn't get a chance to talk about in these last 3 days. And I will put that link in again in a minute. But before we close out, there's 2 more things I wanted to mention. So if you are interested in listening to the audiobook, I highly recommend the version done by the man who played Gollum, and I just forgot his name. It'll come to me. Or if Olivia is listening, she could type it in because she's the one that mentioned it as well. But what I really love about him, there you go, Andy Serkis, is that he is an amazing actor because he can do every single voice. And he sounds just like the people in the movie. It's incredible because he does like hundreds of different voices, but he also sings. And that's what I love about this audiobook series is that he is singing all of the poetry, and there is a lot in here. You look through the book and you'll see tons of poetry because Tolkien loved to write it, and so many people sing it. If you probably know that that's the type of entertainment that was done before we had TV and movies, that people would sing songs and tell stories. And that is what is happening in the Lord of the Rings story as well. They tell each other stories and they sing songs for each other. In Memoriam, they made up a song about Gandalf. They made a song about telling the history of the people, like in Moria, and all kinds of different things like that. So I highly recommend the Andy Serkis. It's spelled Serkis, not like the circus you do acrobats and elephants in. And then one more thing before I hand it off to Dachelle, because she's talking about poetry. I love this quote. And again, it was really close to the end of the book. And it's Bilbo when he's talking to Frodo and Sam as they're saying goodbye to him. And Sam says, I don't think, Mr. Frodo, that he's done much writing while we've been away. He's talking about Bilbo. He says, I don't think Bilbo's been doing much writing while we've been away. He won't ever write our story now. At that, Bilbo opened an eye, almost as if he had heard, and then roused himself. You see, I am getting so sleepy, he said. And when I have time to write, I only really like writing poetry. So I kind of feel like that's how Tolkien is, you know. For us, probably writing poetry is harder, but he loved it and it was easy for him. And so that's what I want to leave you with as we head over to Dachelle to discuss some more poetry. There we go. You guys are on mute.
Olivia was responding to the chat, and I'm like,
Yes, I'm sorry.
Hello. No, I wanted to come in and make Olivia share, since you were talking about Galadriel. So the first version, or the first film, came out when you were how old?
I came out when I was 6, but I didn't watch it till I was 7. So it was like in the new year. So they came out when I was 6 and 7. I was very, very young. And watching them, like I watched them basically all the time growing up. And I had grown up on the cartoon Hobbits and Lord of the Rings movies. So the first time watching the Lord of the Rings live action movies, Fellowship of the Ring, I wasn't scared of the Nazgul or the orcs or anything, or even the Balrog. I was scared of Galadriel. So when they go into Lorien, you can hear her whispering to Frodo, and then the music is so creepy. Because they're doing the lament for Gandalf. Well, when it gets to Galadriel and she turns blue and green, it freaked me out so bad. And I could never watch that scene. I'd always have to leave the room when that happened.
And we would laugh at her.
Yes.
We were mean, weren't we?
Yes, they were very mean.
We might still be mean. No, there is a chat going on. Who is your favorite elf? And I will be honest with you, Legolas is pretty cool in the movies, but my favorite elf is Galadriel, not from the Peter Jackson series, because she's so very awkward when she talks. But I like the fighting Galadriel in the Rings of Power. And she is actually portraying how not that I've read the Silmarillion, but like I said yesterday, my husband has read it many times, and he says this is how she was in the Silmarillion. So she's pretty cool, and she doesn't float around like she does in the movie.
Yeah, she's a go-getter in the Rings of Power.
So y'all can put in y'all's favorite elves too if you want to, but we are fixing to switch it over to Miss Dachelle, and she's going to talk about Elven Verse.
Well, thank you. Well, since we're talking about elves and our favorite elves, in case you were wondering why you don't see a lot of female elves in the books, that's because Tolkien didn't really write many of them. So if you see them in the movie and you're like, I don't remember that one from the book, that's probably because they weren't there. So Peter Jackson, when he was creating the movies, he thought there needed to be a few more women involved. So I think there was one of them that you guys mentioned. That's your favorite elf. She's literally not even the Hobbit. So she just was made up by Peter Jackson to make it a little more fun and make it a little more balanced. So hello, everybody. I'm Dachelle McVeigh, or Nienna Noldren. I'm trying to read it. Nienna Noldren. I'm not even sure if that's how you pronounce it. And I'm here today with my Dew of Lonely Mountain. Get a little sip of that before we get started. So talking about elves today, I absolutely loved dressing up as an elf today. My daughter did all my makeup, so I should look all shiny and have my ears on. And I really loved it because the elves were really the beginning of the Lord of the Rings, the beginning of the Hobbit, the beginning of every book that Tolkien actually wrote, because he created the elves before anything else. So he created a language. Now, I'm not even going to pretend to pronounce this correctly, but it looks kind of like Quenya, but I don't speak Elvish. So he created one of those languages, the very first one, in 1915. So if you think about that, that was over 100 years ago that he created the first Elvish language. And he was in college at Oxford, and then he went into the military, so he had to take some time off that because it was World War I, and he had to fight in the war. And by the time he came back around and started really working on the books, and he was become a famous novelist, and The Lord of the Rings was out, The Hobbit was out, all those books were out. He had created not just one, but many languages, two primary ones, but not just little bits of language, but entire dictionaries of language, entire grammars for those languages, which I know because I teach language arts, everybody hates grammar because it's awful, right? But if we didn't have grammar, nobody would understand anybody else. So he created not just the dictionary of the words, but he created the grammar of how it works. So it is amazing that he came up with all that. The two primary ones are Quenya, I think that's how you pronounce it, and Sindarin. But you know what? I'm sure Alicia's husband could tell us exactly. And those were the main primary ones, but he created many more. So isn't that just wild to think about? So maybe when you're a kid and you're writing, coming up with your own language, you could be a famous novelist who's remembered 100 years later for Middle Earth or whatever your Earth is. Okay, so the ears. I'm sure you've noticed that we've all been wearing our elf ears today. Do you know that they're not really mentioned a whole lot in the books? So notice how we got the little pointed ears? That's not really mentioned in the books. They don't describe it explicitly. So maybe they have pointed ears, maybe not. It's kind of a little bit vague. So people have kind of used that in their own imagination to come up with elf ears, but they do have elf ears. But elves are known as being very fair of color. So usually they're very pale and they're very tall. So the shortest elf is like 6 foot tall. Most of them are above that. So they're very tall. And when Tolkien created the elves, he wanted them to be kind of like the supreme ideal. So they're better than humans. They're better than the three human races, the elves, the humans, and the dwarves, but they're better than all of them. And even though that doesn't mean they can't do bad things, and there's not some ones that kind of do rotten things, but they're kind of what we all should kind of appeal to. So that's kind of how he created them. So I just think that's fascinating to think about before we get into really studying about all the fun things of literature today. So we're going to read one of the songs or poems that was sung by the elves. Now, this is in the last chapter. It's called The Last Stage of The Hobbit. So if you have the Hobbit book, you can always grab yours and read along with me. But it is written at the time Bilbo is taking a nap, and he is hearing outside of his window this lullaby basically to him. So he's listening to the lullaby, and if you listen to it, it'll talk about the different things. And then at the end, the elves start talking about being quieter because they're going to let Bilbo go back to sleep and go to sleep. So there's a lot of imagery in this poem because we know Tolkien likes to use a lot of imagery because that's important. Like Gena was saying, he shared what he was thinking with descriptions. Now, Tolkien is hard to read. If you've ever tried to read the Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings, you'll notice there's a lot of words. I mean, they're huge. This Hobbit book, and by the way, people say it's a children's book. It's not a children's book. He said he never did not write it for children. He wrote it for everyone. But they're really quite thick. And here's my Lord of the Rings. It's kind of thick too. It's gigantic. But he wrote them because he wanted to give a lot of imagery. He wanted to describe in detail what he was seeing because he created Middle Earth from his mind and in his imagination. He wanted everybody else to experience Middle Earth the same way he did. So he gave us insane amount of details. In fact, it took me years to read The Lord of the Rings because when I first started reading it, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm never going to get through all the descriptions, but it is a wonderful read. So read it. Okay. Now back to what we're talking about, this poem, this song here. So he uses a lot of imagery. So you're creating a scene, and the elves are singing this, and they're asking everybody. So you'll notice, pay attention to who everybody is in this, to join in this festivities. There's dancing, there's singing, and then, like I said, they're going to slow it down and quiet it down so Bilbo can get some rest. Okay, if you're with me, we'll start reading on page 299. Sing all ye joyful, now sing all together. The wind's in the treetop, the wind's in the heather. The stars are in blossom, the moon is in flower, and bright are the windows of night in her tower. Dance all ye joyful, now dance all together. Soft is the grass, and let foot be like feather. The river is silver, the shadows are fleeting. Merry is Maytime, and merry our meeting. Sing we now softly, in dream let us weave him. Wind him in slumber, and there let us leave him. The wanderer sleepeth, now soft be his pillow. Lullaby, lullaby, alder and willow. Sigh no more pine till the wind of the morn. Fall moon, dark be the land. Hush, hush, oak, ash, and thorn. Hushed be all water till dawn is at hand. Okay, so the last 2 days, we've been talking about different things that we've been finding in the poetry that Tolkien wrote. So every time he writes poetry, he writes it for a very specific purpose. He's leading us through the story, but he gets to do it in kind of a fun way with a song. Now, we talked about how lyrics are poetry. So all songs are actually generally poetry, like the way they're written. So let's talk about some of the fun that we see in this poem. Yesterday, we talked about a quatrain. Do you remember what that was? It was where we have 4 lines in a stanza. So today, we're going to continue that. We have 4 lines in each stanza. But this one's not quite as long as yesterday's poem. This has a different rhyming scheme too. So let's see if we can listen by the first stanza and see if you can catch that rhyming scheme. Sing all ye joyful, now sing all together. The wind's in the treetop, the wind's in the heather. The stars are in blossom, the moon is in flower, and bright are the windows of night in her tower. So do you hear that? Yesterday we had A-A-B-A, I believe. So the first 2 and the last words, the last words of the first 2 and the last stanza rhymed. But in this one, we don't have that. We have A-A-B-B because the first 2 together and heather rhyme, but then he switches to flower and tower. But does he continue to do that? Well, actually, he does in the second stanza and the third stanza. But let's listen to the fourth stanza and see if he still does that. Sigh no more pine till the wind of the morn. Fall moon, dark be the land. Hush, hush, oak, ash, and thorn. Hushed be all water till dawn is at hand. So he switches the rhyme scheme at the end. Now we're at A-B, A-B. And why do you think he does that? He's making a change, leading us into a different part of the poem that's a little bit different than the first part. So you notice in the first stanza, he's telling everybody, sing together. We're going to sing. We're going to have fun. The second stanza, dance together. We're all going to dance. The third stanza, he says, sing softly. Dreams weave him. So we're leading Bilbo into going back to sleep and letting him rest and dreams weaving. And then the last stanza, which completes the song, is saying, everybody be quiet. Remember I said, pay attention to who everybody is? We're talking about pines and wind and the moon and the land, oak, ash, and thorn. So we got trees in there, water, and dawn. So we're going to use something called personification here. So that's what Tolkien is using. He's using personification. Now, if you don't know what personification is, I kind of love it. It's one of my favorite things. You'll use it all the time, but you don't think about it. It's where you put human characteristics to non-human things. So you may say something like the tree danced outside. The trees don't really dance, but it kind of looks like it's dancing as it's waving in the wind. And that is what Tolkien is using here. He says, sigh no more pine. Trees don't sigh. Till the wind of the morn, fall moon, dark be the land. Hush, hush, oak, ash, and thorn. So he's telling them all to be quiet, but they don't have human characteristics to be able to be hushed. And then it says, hush to the water till dawn is at hand. So he's giving that personification. He's giving that human characteristic to each of those things. Now, another thing that we talked about yesterday that he uses again is alliteration. So let's see if we can hear the alliteration here. Remember, alliteration was when we use the same sound at the beginning. So listen here to this one. Here it is. Merry is Maytime and merry our meeting. So what sound do you hear in that? Merry is Maytime and merry our meeting. Can you hear the M sound? Merry is Maytime, merry our meeting. So he's using that alliteration to put together the words merry, May, and meeting. Now, another one we talked about yesterday as well was anaphora. And I don't know if you remember, but that was one where we said we use the same word or the same phrase at the beginning of multiple lines. So yesterday he said the, he kept saying the, and we said that was a really great way that authors and poets will kind of make an emphasis of something. We also said don't use it grammarly on that because it will tell you no every time. But he uses that again here. So let's see if we can find the anaphora. In this first stanza, we'll hear the winds in the treetop, the winds in the heather. So he repeats the winds twice. Again, he's making a point. The wind is not just in the treetops up high, but it's down low in the heather. So we're seeing the wind all around. So visually, remember we talked about imagery? We can close our eyes and see the wind in the trees. We can see the wind down in the heather. So we're getting that imagery. He's letting us see what the elves are seeing. Another thing that he uses is metaphor. Did you notice the metaphor? Oh, wait a minute. There's one more anaphora. I forgot. Hush, hush. He says that one over and over. So hush, hush, telling everything to hush. He's making a point of it. Shh. It's time to sleep. It's time to be quiet. Okay, the next thing he uses, well, I'll get out in a minute, is metaphor. Now, we use metaphor all the time. And we'll say things and we'll make a comparison. So you might use the words like and as when you say, make a comparison. That would not be a metaphor. That would be a simile. So it would be a time when we're comparing things, but we're not actually using the words like and as. So here he says, remember we just read the little section that said the winds in the treetop, the winds in the heather, the stars are in blossom, the moon is in flower. So think about that for a minute. The stars are in blossom. The stars blossom? No. The moon in flower? No, he's comparing the stars and the moon in the sky to flowers. So he's making a comparison. So you're not just saying, oh, the twinkling stars. He's saying the stars are in blossom. So we think of blossom as being full. And so now we're thinking, oh, how is a star full? Well, it's bright. How is the moon in flower? Well, if something's in flower, it's blooming, right? So the moon is all big and beautiful. So that's how we're taking that comparison. And now we've got this imagery. So we've thought about the winds in the treetop. The winds are blowing and down in the heather. And now we're seeing the brightness of the stars. Oh, no, am I glitching? I hope not. I don't know. We don't have any storms here or anything, so I'm not sure what's going. So I hope you guys can't hear it. Okay, good. It's fine for you. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's just something over the internet. Okay, so that is our metaphors. Now, the last thing he uses is repetition, but he's used that before because repetition is a great way to bring back the point. So he repeats things over and over. And he does that here too. He does that when we talked about it. He made a bigger point in the last poem we talked about yesterday. And he even did that repeating by sharing that same song over and over throughout The Hobbit and throughout The Lord of the Rings. But he was sharing it in a little bit different way. So even though he's repeating the song, he was basically making up new lyrics for it to go along with it. So he loves to repeat that because he's making a point. So when you're going through and you're reading The Hobbit, make sure to stop for a minute. And when you come to these poems or you come to these songs, stop listen to the words, read the words out loud. And if you can, close your eyes and let someone else read the words to you so you can visualize what you're seeing. A lot of what we do in our Hobbit book club is we visualize, because Tolkien is one of the best describers on the planet. He is so good at describing exactly what he thinks in his brain so that you can see it in your brain. So close your eyes and kind of listen to that imagery and think about what he wants you to actually see. Okay, so that's all I was going to share with you today. And we're getting done just a little bit early today, but that's okay because, hey, more fun time to read. We are going to be starting our book club, though, tomorrow. So if you signed up for summer lit camp with Literary Adventures for Kids, then make sure and check in tomorrow morning. They'll have the entire thing ready for you to start. You should have had your first bit of content show up. So you should be seeing, if you go into the course, your first reading project, vocabulary, if you want to do that. There's some really cool British vocabulary in there, so make sure and check that, because I remember I told you Tolkien makes up words. And the rabbit trails and the magic dust are there. And then we'll have our very first live book club next Thursday. I'm very excited about that. So we will meet on Zoom. And if you've made friends here on the lives, then you can meet up with your friends there and talk about Tolkien, and we will start our adventure story. So I'm going to send it back to the lovely Miss Alisha and Olivia.
Are we unmuted?
We are.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Dachelle, and thank you so much, Gena. Y'all have really added so much more to this. You have made it an epic kickoff. So just a reminder, Art Venture starts the prep week next week. And if you are joining in with Miss Dachelle's Summer Lit Club, she allowed us to put our corresponding chapters with hers. So that way y'all can be in her book club and participate in ours. And then you should grab Gena's music so that you can have a more in-depth study of Middle Earth music too. So we're so excited. Thank you all for joining us. And we cannot wait to see you again. Next year, we're going to go into Narnia. So get prepared now, and we will see you then. We'll see you before then, but for our Art Venture, it will be in Narnia.
You want me to is it okay if I bring you other ladies in real quick for
yeah,
our goodbye?
That'd be great.
Yes,
Okay.
please.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
And did y'all want to say anything else before we head off?
No, I think you said it all. It's just
All
been
right.
great being here, though. I love this
It's been so much
collaboration.
fun.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. We will see y'all later. Bye-bye.
Bye.